All right, guys, welcome back. We got another Ashes of Creation video. I've been pushing really hard this week just because we have the NDA dropping and I want to have a lot of content banked up for you all. But also, we've gotten a lot of really good stuff. We've had 3 spot tests, the developer stream, and all of them have had a lot of new content and a lot of new information that I want to share with all of you, especially those that aren't in the alpha testing themselves. The exciting new information, the stuff we have for this video today, is going to be the new passives. And we got a little teaser about it during the live stream, but I was able to get into testing today. They are now in the test. And I compiled basically all 3 different archetypes. They are different, and we'll go over all of that. But why don't we roll the clip from the dev stream just so we have a basis, so you guys understand what I'm talking about and where these passives are going to be in the skill tree.
See, another thing we added, if we open up J, is we incorporated some additional passive skills. So you can see all these passive abilities: mana regen, attack damage, critical hit damage, health regeneration, defense mitigation, maximum health. A lot of different changes from the passive side of things, and these are based on what archetype you've chosen.
All right, so I've put some graphics together for you guys to make it easy for you to see and then go back and look at what these passives are. I will say I spent way too long on them, and I'm still not very happy with how they came out, but hopefully you guys enjoy them and find them useful. Just a quick reminder, a lot of these passives could be placeholders, especially the more generic ones. There are some that are a little more specific, and also especially the numbers are definitely going to change, right? We have not done any balanced passes, but I want to go over a few things here before we get into the individual passives for each of the archetypes. And the first thing is that it takes a certain number of skill points to unlock each tier. At the moment, it's 1 skill point at each tier, and then you unlock pretty quickly. But I'm sure those numbers are going to change, and it's going to feel a lot more like a sense of progression. Also, at the moment, we are getting active and passive skill points separately. So whenever you level up, you get points on each. So you get points to spend in active and points to spend in passive. My understanding is that they're all going to be combined at some point, but maybe they've made a design change. So we'll have to see how that plays out as we get further along in testing. In alpha, we only go up to 15, so that might be the reason for that. Another one, at the moment, we only have 1 level of each. We have not seen the levels 1, 2, and 3. We only see the level 1. So we don't know if it's just straight up doubles, triples, whatever. We'll have to see what each individual level gets you for later on. And I could see for the alpha us only getting 1 level of passives. The other thing people have mentioned is potentially there could be a level cap. So you might need to reach a certain level before you unlock the second level of some of these skills. And then the other thing to note is choosing one thing in the tier does not lock you out. This is not World of Warcraft. You can choose everything in the tier or nothing in some tiers. So I was able to skip tiers. So I took 1 in tier 2. I believe I took 1 in tier 3, and then I was immediately able to go into tier 4. But anyway, that's the basic information. Why don't we start with tank passives? So on screen is my graphic here. I hope you all find this useful. As I said, I spent way too much time on it. But anyway, let's start with tier 1. So the first one is block chance. So this increases your chance to block attacks by 20%, and blocked attacks deal 20% reduced damage. So block is not crazy powerful, right? It's only a 20% damage reduction. So it sounds like you might be able to get block a lot easier than some games where you just completely take no damage. Another thing to note is, as of right now in testing, you can use this without a shield. So you can still get block chance while you're using a 2-handed weapon. The next one, mana regeneration. Regenerate an additional 1% of your mana per second. One thing to note here is I don't know if this is continuous or if it pauses after you cast a spell for a little bit, or if it's only while you're out of combat. if this is continuous, this thing is insane, right? Just the ability to sustain and just keep going. And I will say this is on every single class. So the tier 1 mana regeneration is on all 3 archetypes. I can see it being used by almost all of them very regularly. All right, tier 2. We've got healing received, increase the amount of healing received by 10%. Obviously, makes sense for a tank skill. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Health regeneration, regenerate an additional 1.5% of maximum health per second. Once again, I don't know if this is only out of combat, continuous, what. This obviously gets better the more health you get. So yeah, we'll have to see how that one plays out. Critical hit rate. Increase the chance for damaging and healing abilities to critically hit by 5%. So for a tank, I mean, I guess you could spec a little into damage, but if you're trying to go like the straight tank roll, this is for threat, right? And we don't know exactly how threat, and I believe it's called anger in Ashes of Creation. We don't know exactly how that's going to play out and if this is going to make a lot of sense or not. At tier 3, we have maximum health. Increase maximum health by 75. And 75 is actually a decent amount of health right now. With endgame gear, tanks are generally just over 1,000 health. So 75 is close to a 10% increase in health. Obviously, we'll have to see how this plays out and if it's that valuable as you get into endgame. But once again, this could be a placeholder. Defense mitigation. Increase your defense mitigation by 4. There's no information on exactly what defense mitigation does. I haven't had enough time to test what kind of damage is done when you have the extra 4 versus not. It displays in your character sheet it going up, but there's no information on if that's just a flat rate, right? Is that just a 4% reduction in damage or what? So we'll have to see from there. All right, tier 4, physical evasion bonus. Increase physical evasion bonus by 5. Same thing as defense mitigation, the previous one. We just don't know enough about what evasion bonus does. You see it go up in your character sheet, but there's really not enough information to know how useful this is. Cooldown reduction. Reduce all ability cooldowns by 5%. Cooldown and reduction across the board is amazing. Just the more skills you can use, the faster they're up, especially your big skills, more damage you're doing, the more CC you're putting out. Just great overall. Movement speed. Increase movement speed by 5%. Pretty standard. Increases your movement speed. This is going to be very useful, especially in open combat. The moment with how group combat is working, it doesn't seem like you really need to catch up to people or anything like that. I'm not sure how useful it is because right now everything is just team fights. All right, let's move on to the cleric passives. So at tier 1, we have increased healing. Increase healing by 10%. And I'm actually going to come back to this once we go over the tier 2 skills, just because there's some synergies here, and that's when we can talk about whether it's good or not. We also have mana regeneration. As said, this is on every class. If it's consistent, always up, amazing. Just absolutely amazing. Tier 2, maximum mana. Increase maximum mana by 100. This is just really good. Right now, mana is pretty low, and it's often an issue, especially in big team fights, especially out in the world when you're trying to grind away. There's some downtime if you don't have enough mana. And we're sitting between, I think, 500 and 600 mana for most classes at max level. An extra 100 is huge, especially if you pair this with the mana regeneration in tier 1. Health regeneration. Regenerate an additional 1.5% of maximum health per second. So this one and the next one are the same for all the classes. And I don't know how useful this would be on cleric who can heal themselves. So it feels a little lackluster here. Next one, critical hit rate. Increase the critical hit by 5%. And this goes back to the increased healing by 10%, right? So I think you can either, go down the mana tree for more sustain, or you can go down the power tree. So what do you want to do? Hit big and hard, or do you want to just constantly be casting all the time, never run out of mana is what it seems like here. Tier 3, maximum health and defense mitigation. These are the same as the tank. Once again, you can never go wrong with health, especially in a PvX game like this. Don't know enough about defense mitigation to say whether it's good or not. All right, tier 4, we have Disabled Defense, which reduces the chance of being disabled by crowd control effects by 10%. This just seems really good, right? In a PvX game and PvP, to 10% of the time just be able to ignore your enemy who just burned a cooldown to take you out of the fight is huge. Next up, cooldown reduction. So as I said, cooldown reduction, movement speed, standard for all the classes, but cooldown reduction seems to synergize pretty well with the maximum mana and mana regeneration if you're going down that route. Right, let's move right on to Mage passive skills. So at tier 1, we have attack damage. Increase attack damage by 5. And this is a little weird, right? We don't normally associate attack damage with a mage or casting class. We do know that there are physical and magical skills, and they're different. We've seen gear on stats already that increase them separately. So I would assume physical skills would scale with attack damage, but we don't know which scales do which, and I haven't had enough time to test them yet. And I don't see a lot of the mage skills being attack damage based. But maybe this is kind of their idea, like, yeah, mages can technically wear plate. You might have a battle mage that's up front in the fray. So we'll have to see how this one plays out. Mana regeneration, just as I said, it's powerful on every single class. Every single class seems to have mana and be having mana issues somewhat now. And if it's constantly ticking, just great. Tier 2, so we have health regeneration and critical hit rate like all the other classes. The mage has critical hit damage. Increase the damage and healing bonus from critical hits by 20%. Yeah, as I said, I don't know how good this is. I assume at endgame it's going to be absolutely amazing, right? Getting an extra 20% on crits and crit builds will probably be a thing. In the alpha, with us only being able to get to 15 and only a certain amount of gear to select from, I don't know how high of a critical rate you can get and if this is worth taking. Tier 3, maximum health. Once again, always good. Defense mitigation, don't know enough about it. Tier 4, disable chance. So this is an interesting one. Increase chance to disable with crowd control effects by 15%. I don't know what this means. So far, all crowd control effects just happen. It's not a chance that you will or won't hit it. It's just if you cast it and hit the person, it happens. Obviously, sounds like they're going to change that moving forward. Maybe part of the DR, the way they're going to, the diminishing returns on crowd control is going to, you're going to have a percentage chance to not be affected by it. And a mage can increase that. This could be amazing, right? It sounds like it has a huge amount of potential. Control in massive group battles is huge. So we'll have to see. Cooldown reduction and movement speed are standard. So yeah, I think they're going to be good. As I said, movement speed less so in the current type of combat, but in open world stuff, just super useful. And just like, yeah, around playing, 5% faster move speed is basically 5% more time you're doing stuff other than travel. And in a world this size, it is huge. All right, so that's all I've got for you guys today. I just wanted to gather up the information and present it to you all so you'd have it. You can understand what kind of direction they seem to be taking with passives. And then if you are in the Alpha 1, of course, you can use this to help you make decisions on what you're going to pick with your character, especially when we get into the month-long build, and it might actually matter, and you might have to make some decisions and choose between different things for your endgame build. But anyway, I will have another video, I believe, coming out tomorrow. It's just going to do a recap of everything we've seen in testing, where I think things are going, maybe have a little discussion on whether I think the NDA is or should drop in 2 weeks. And then later this week, I've got another scripted video. I think this is going to be a really interesting topic, something I've been working on a decent amount. And so, yeah. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the content, please do drop a like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.